Kicksut, and I'm going to show the RetroPie web application, or if anybody can think of a better name, whatever it will be called in the future. So I'm going to put in the IP address of my Piecade, my RetroPie system, and the URL is the IP address plus ROMs at the end. And what's just happened is the web application has loaded all the themes and read all the game directories and game lists and rendered it as a web page. So the systems that are displayed are all of the systems that contain a game list file that contains ROMs. There are options to show every system, but I've just got the settings on to just show the ones that I've currently got games for. So this is the main system screen. I can use the arrow keys to change the system as you would on Emulation Station, but you can also use the mouse to drag. And if you're on a mobile phone or tablet, you could use your finger to use swipe controls to drag the system carousel bar. You might briefly saw that there is an all category which shows all ROMs across all different systems. So if I went into that and go up and down, you can see that it's listing every ROM, and as I scroll up and down, it changes the system theme to match the currently selected game. You can go back by clicking the back button, or actually using the keyboard, clicking escape, or even the back button on the browser. So you might notice that when I clicked into Arcade there, the actual address in the address bar goes to the directory that you're in, and if you go into a subdirectory, it changes again. So the history works as though you're browsing a website, but actually it is all happening in a single web page. It's a single page application. So there is another way of getting to the all category, and that is just by typing the name of a game, or just typing anything. So if I just type the words ball for BALL, you can see that it's taken me straight into the all category, and in the filter box down at the bottom in the help bar, what I've typed appears there. So this is a feature of all game lists, that you can type in part of the name of a game, and it'll filter the list by what you've typed. There's another kind of filter, is the favorite here. If I click that shows all of the games that I've got listed as a favorite. So another way of showing that is by use of this little control here, which lists all of the fields that can be displayed in a game list. So the default is the name, but if I type put in the favorite there, you can see that it shows all of the favorites, and I can actually sort on that column. If I show the size and other fields, you can do the same for them. So say rating, maybe genre, and as I add different fields, the size of the text and the layout is adjusted to fit it in. The controls for the game list screen, you can use the keyboard again, and the mouse track and the scroll wheel on the mouse to go up and down. The keys for it, you can use the home key to go to the top of the list and the end key to go to the bottom of the list. You can also use page up and page down to go a page at a time, and you can use left and right to go between systems. Pressing enter takes you into the metadata editor, where you can overtype any of the metadata, and as soon as you make a change you can save it. You can also launch the game here, and that will launch it remotely on the Raspberry Pi. You can, once you've made a change, you can also reset to put it back as it was before you started making a change. There's also different controls for the favorite hidden in kit game that you can sometimes see in different versions of Emulation Station. The web app uses the favorites, which I showed earlier, to filter here. So there are a few ways of changing a favorite hidden in kit game, and also the rating as well. If I click it here, you can see that it updates it there. And if I had the favorite column switched on, you'd also see it change in the column as well. Now, there are some themes do have these icons built into them, if the version of Emulation Station shows them, and they are also enabled to modify the metadata. So if I click the favorite there, then that makes it a favorite, and it also automatically saves that to the game list file. So I can do that for all of the other icons, and if the theme, like the Carbon Old theme, shows the rating, you can also do that there. So I could change the rating in the game list view as well. So if I make that quite low, you see that it's changed it here. So, but I can still change it here as well. I can use the spinners, or I could overtype a number, or I could just use the slider to make the change. You can also use the controls on the game list to make changes to the metadata. So if I choose favorites and a couple of others, now you can click on the column as well to change whether something's a favorite or not, and you can also, against the rating, change the rating, and you can see that that's reflected elsewhere, and also in the metadata editor. You can also sort by clicking on column headings. I'm not sure if I showed that earlier. I've done a couple of versions of this. Once you've got a few different columns displayed, you can reset the view as well by just clicking the reset at the bottom of this, and that takes it back to normal. It does support subdirectories, so you can click into a subdirectory to show what's in that subdirectory. I haven't got much metadata on these items, but I'll just click back there. And this sort of explains what this folder icon is here, that by default anything that's within a subfolder isn't shown. But if I wanted to make the directory completely flat, no matter how deeply it's nested, I could click the folder icon, and that shows, or should do somewhere, all of the all of the items within that subfolder. And if I switch it off again, they disappear again. You can, as a menu option, actually show the number of things inside of a game list view. So because there's about 15 items inside of that directory, it's only showing 85 of 101 items. So if I make it flat again, it's showing 101 out of 101. And that's the same for if I filter again on wall to just show the one game, you can see that it's showing just 1 out of 101 items there. And as I type it, it changes the number. You might have spotted that in the game list editor you can actually drag and drop files there. You can drag, if there was no image file there, you could drag an image file to that area. You can do the same for a marquee or a video file too. So, and the ways to do that, you can either just click on it to select a file, and then it uploads, or you could actually start it the other way around and just finding a file and dragging it, find an image, and you could just drag it to that area and drop it. Once you've done that, the image is uploaded to the Raspberry Pi, and the path to the file is filled in for you, but at the moment it's an unsaved change. So for me to actually make a change to the game list file, I'd have to click the save button, but if I reset it, then it undoes that change. So I've only really uploaded some of the media packs from Nismo's Old Room theme for the Neo Geo system. So if I go into that, I can show you sort of what that looks like through the front end. So this is just the showing some of the media in the Carbon theme, but if I switch to the Old Room theme, you can sort of see what that looks like there. If I change the view to video, you can see that that sort of works pretty well. There are a few, the themes aren't perfect. Some of the Z indexes for some of the images aren't worked out quite right, and I need to do a little bit more work on that. I think there should be an overlay over these movies to make them a bit, to give the effect of scan lines and make it a little bit darker. And there's various other little tweaks that perhaps need to be made, but it's getting there more and more or less. So another thing about the game lists that I haven't really developed too much yet, but might be a thing in the future, is that these you can actually select multiple games and do something with them. And at the moment, what the original intention was that I could quickly select some of these games and move them to a different directory, or do other various per game functions with them, but I haven't quite developed it that much just yet. But the keys to do that, a bit like selecting one or multiple files, you can hold down the Control or Shift keys and select one or multiple files. So if I do that, I can individually select a range, or if I hold the Control key down, I can just select one. It's slightly different on the Mac, and I've just thrown myself there that Control and click is right click on a Mac. It's actually Command and click to do the same thing that you would do on Windows by doing Control and click. So, but if you use a Mac, you're probably used to that already anyway. So the idea is, though, that you can select multiple files, and then there will be in the future like a right-click menu to do various options, either with an individual game or the whole selected range of games, and ignore that menu. It's not going to look exactly like that, but that's the idea there. I'll just get rid of that for now. The other way of doing something within the game list is using the options menu. Now I've got a few of these functions done. It's not entirely everything that I want to do in the future, which will include scraping and exporting and various other things. But an interesting one is matching the media, where what this does is actually looks at all the files in this directory that are not in the game list files. So it doesn't do much in here because there isn't anything to scan really, but probably best showing it on a different directory. But yeah, what it will do is for each game match the ROM name with like a matching name in the images directory, or if there's a marquees directory, match a file with a marquee, and the same for a video, and it actually populates the paths into the game lists files, so that you don't really have to do any editing there. Again, uploading ROMs is something that I haven't quite finished off yet, but like uploading the images, marquees and videos, I've already got the code, so it shouldn't be too much of a big deal to wire that in. So what I imagine happening is dragging and dropping a ROM onto the game list. It then immediately open the metadata editor and scrape information, and you've then got the option to edit that and save it, and actually run the game straight away. So that's the ideal, really, that just dragging and dropping a ROM to the web page and clicking pretty much launch, you could within a couple of clicks really run a game on the Raspberry Pi without many key presses or key clicks.
So I'll briefly show what some of the themes look like, just to give an idea of how it works on different themes. Now, at the moment, not all themes behave that well with adjusting the columns. Things that have got a fixed background, actually it just, if I can find one, like Workbench, yeah, if I add a column here, and also the menus a bit shorter on this system, but it's repositioned correctly, but just wrapped around because I've got so many things selected to be on the help menu. But if I add a column there, you'll see that it just all goes a bit wrong. So what I think I'll do about that is any theme that's got an image that fills the entire page, I think I'll just have the game list actually filling up the game list area that's allocated to it. And any other theme that's got a tile-based background, I'll have that behaving as you've seen previously. So there's still little bits of work to be done, but I'll show you a couple of other themes. A flat theme is a newish one to me anyway. The fundamental theme is quite a newish one, and not, yeah, I have got some descriptions in for that. And see, we've got the same kind of problem there, that it's got a very short help bar, so you can actually change the themes in the main menu as well, which I haven't talked much about. The main menu, there's like an emulation station, you've got some, you can change the theme here. At the moment I've just got language selections, and the only difference is UK and US, and that boils down to the different spellings of the favourite. Apart from that, they're identical. I don't know any other languages to make my own files for that, but hopefully somebody could contribute to that. You can change the date format here, and this is the format that appears in the game lists. It's not the date format that appears here on the date editor. This is using a new web standard for the date input fields, and it's browser specific how this displays. It'll display differently on Chrome, Edge, IE, and Safari, and all the other browsers. So you might have different controls for how you select a date there. So yeah, the main menu, you can change the theme there. I'll just talk about the other settings as well. What this is, load all game systems at the start. What that's to do with is, when you click refresh, what's actually happening is the Raspberry Pi is reading all of the theme files. It's also reading all the game lists, and it actually opens the game lists and looks through them, and it checks how big the files are, and that's how you get the file size column in the game listings. So it does quite a bit of work, and I wasn't sure whether it should do that for every system when you first load the page up, which is in that half a second or so. Now I've got it set to not load all the game systems at the start. So what's happening is, as I go to a different system, there's a short pause while it goes back to the Pi and says, give me everything for arcade, and then it returns with the list. If I change that setting to load everything up front, and I refresh the page, it's getting everything straight away without a delay. Now, and it just boils down to, I wasn't sure which way was best, so I just thought I'd make it an option. So the other options, scan for new games at the start when you load up. If I go into the Amstrad directory, there's only one thing in there. So that means really that there's only one game in my game list XML file. But I know that there are actually a couple of other empty directories in that directory. So I can either click scan now. There's two options there that are very close to each other. So if I click scan now, it actually finds them directories, and including even the images and marquees directory, which are empty and got no ROMs in them, but they might actually have images in them. But if I refresh, so they were unsaved changes, so that's why when I click refresh they don't come back. If I change the menu option to scan for new games at the start, and click refresh. Now it's basically does a scan, and if you were in the main menu, it would do a scan for every system. So it's another little thing to do with a preference, but also how much work the actual web page, well, the Raspberry Pi has to do when it loads up the web page. So the other options, I prefer to switch that off at the moment. Yeah, show empty new directories. If I untick that, even though it knows about those directories, because they've got no games in them, if I can choose to hide them or not. And the reason to have that is, unlike on Emulation Station, we might want to go into an empty directory to drag and drop a new ROM. It might be that we've only just installed RetroPie and we've got nothing to show, and we don't want to see no systems and no directories to be able to do anything. So we might want to go into an empty system and enter an empty directory and drag and drop a file to create a new list. So that's what they're about. The help bar settings, I did show earlier that there's various things I can add in a switch off. Perhaps I better change the theme actually to better show that. Let's go into TurtlePie. It's quite a nice theme. So the help bar settings, we can turn off the game count that I showed earlier. The add remove column lists, that was this plus or minus thing down here. The theme select and the view select. Now it's good to have the controls to be able to have all that on the screen, but if your preferred theme has got a very small help menu, then you might not want to have everything switched on.
So the other bits of things that I want to do, you might have noticed on view there was the grid option. I haven't actually done that yet, but that'd be nice to do, a good feature to do. The other big obvious thing that I wanted to do was a search screen, and although you can filter on the game name, I think it'd be really nice to be able to do a combination of search of different fields with perhaps different date ranges for year released or last played, and various other combinations of complicated searches that you might do. So I think that's pretty much it for the front end, but about the actual system itself, now what I will do is to publish this on the GitHub. I also want to say about how to install it and sort of how big it is and how much resources it takes and stuff like that. So if I so when you do download it, it's about 100 odd K. It's pretty much all code without any images. It's just got a few SVG files for some of these icons here that they were stolen a little bit from the Emulation Station. So thank you for all involved in creating them icons. These icons as well. But yeah, it's hardly got any graphics in it, and that's why it is so tiny. It's just 100K or so of code. It is actually just one web page. It's written in Angular, so it's all JavaScript, HTML, CSS. The stuff in the background that runs on the Raspberry Pi is PHP. So the web server that is used is Apache, which I think probably comes pre-installed and set up on Raspberry, and I'm pretty sure that it's in the standard image for RetroPie, so that should already be on there. But there's a couple of things I'd like to just explain about now. When you do download it from GitHub or as part of a package, there's a couple of options here. The install, what that does is it downloads any packages that are missing. So it requires Apache and PHP, and also the GD library of PHP. So they're the required packages. Now Apache's probably already going to be on there. PHP 5's probably big-ish, so that's going to take a little bit of space. And then you've got GD, which is a tiny extension. It changes permissions of the file. It does create a few symbolic links because the themes have got images in that need to be displayed from the browser. That needs to be under the web root, if you like. So it needs to be browsable and served by Apache. So the themes need to be symlinked to where this is installed, as does downloaded images if your images aren't with the games list, and the actual ROMs directory, usually your images might well be with your ROMs in the same directories. So all of this is it's good to know about, because if you're worried about those, if you open this up to the internet, then all of these files are visible, which might be a concern. So it's worth at least knowing about. The other thing is, I've just done I haven't messed about too much with Apache. I didn't want to do it the proper way. It's literally, Apache comes set up to point to this directory with an index file that says it worked, and all I do really is point the app to like a virtual directory there to set it up. So it's just a one-liner, but it's probably not the best way of setting this up, but it works. So that's where you've got your ROMs there. It also downloads the Angular files that it needs, and then tells you the IP address and how to access the page. So if I do a sudo install now, so this is what it does really, just gets the packages it needs to, and tells you to go and search on that URL. Now the other thing is the launch facility. Now this required a little bit more changing input permissions, that because the web page needs to launch a game, it means that Apache needs to be able to launch a game, and it needs to run in an environment that user can see all of those files, can read all of them files. So in a nutshell, Apache needs to run as the Pi user, which not everybody might want, and that's why I haven't put this bit in the install script, because it's basically, it changes the Apache run user group from www data to the Pi user, and then restarts Apache. It also, because of a problem with input, it can't run the standard run command because of an error with trying to redirect to standard input. So I basically have to tweak the script to not try to get standard input, and it creates a copy of the run command. And I know this is a little bit off topic, but there is a slight problem with that. That some emulators that rely on input from the session that you're on, and if you're on a web page, you're not on a session. The keys might not work, and I think any libretro based emulator is going to work, but stuff like the Atari 800 emulator, the keys might not work. If you launch a game through the web page, then try to play it on your Raspberry Pi, because it doesn't know where to get keyboard input from. So that's just the same. It's just a case of enable launch, and you can ignore this error, and then if you don't run this enable launch command, then you just don't get the option here or here. So, but everything else will work. There is another thing, that the whole system, it's got two modes of working. There's an edit mode and a read-only mode, and the read-only mode, you don't get options to edit the metadata or make any kind of changes at all, and the thing that controls that is whether you're on your local area network. So if the IP address of the thing running the browser is 192.168, then which matches the server, then it's going to be an edit mode. But if you're pushing this out to the internet, then those IP addresses are going to be something different, and it should be in read-only mode. So the last thing I'll talk about then really is about when I release this, and I'm a bit torn really that it'd be nice if I'd finished everything and then release it, and it's as good as it can be, and then the people that see it for the first time see it in the best way they can. But on the other hand, I think it would be nice to have some kind of input and people's ideas on where to take it from here. And yeah, but on the other hand, I do want to make sure that it's totally secure as well, and that I get rid of as many bugs as I can before people start trying it. But then on the other hand, again, it would be nice to get feedback if people have problems trying to install it, or with different browsers, different computers, different versions of the Raspberry Pi, they might have different performance problems. So that kind of feedback would be useful too. So I'm a bit torn about when I should release this. But let me know what you think. I think the final thing I'll do before I go is to try with my GoPro and cycle helmet to demo what it looks like on a tab and a phone, and what actually happens when you launch a game for real. So I'll call that a day.
So this is what it looks like on a little iPhone and an iPad 1, so it's a little bit slow, but it still works. You can still control everything with the touch events. You can still change a theme if I wanted to. and I could still run games, still navigate with the by clicking on either the back button down there or on the browser history. Oh. So, and the same is true for the iPhone, and it resizes the screen depending on the size and orientation of the device. So I think just what I'll do is, that's the Raspberry Pi that I've got over there, and I'll just show that remote launching actually does work, and I'll just start the top one, 1941. You can see, like I said earlier, the date controls look slightly different on different devices. So here goes the launch. What it'll do, it'll close Emulation Station and start the game. There's a little bit of a delay.